Hi, it's Diederik Ellerman here. Today I want to share a strategy on how you can help improve your communication outcomes, whether that's on the phone, face-to-face, or speaking in front of a group of either small or large group. So this is all about the science behind getting your hands to speak. And you may or may not have noticed, as you've been watching me over the last few weeks and months, that I tend to use my hands to speak. Now, I've always done this and it's natural to me. But if you think this through, you'll have run into a lot of people that don't use their hands when they speak, or only use them in very small ways. I don't know what you do personally, but let me suggest that if you're not using your hands, or if you're only using them minimally, that you increase the number and the range of your gestures, because a couple of things will happen, and I'll just go through them in a sec, but briefly, you're going to be able to think better. Yes, your thoughts will improve when you're using your hands to speak. Studies show this. And then from the listener's perspective, the person you're talking with, that second language of your hands will increase depth and emotionality and the impact of what you're saying. So using your hands to speak is beneficial to you. It'll help improve your thought process. It'll help improve the thinking and thinking through that topic, that subject, and it'll help you get the message across more clearly. And then it's also beneficial to the other person with respect to that it helps their subconscious to process what you're saying, and it also helps them to increase their understanding and retention of what you're saying. So it's a win-win situation all around. Let me cite one particular study for you, and I'm sure you heard of the TED Talks. And the Science of People lab in Portland, Oregon, studied the TED Talks from 2016 that went viral versus the ones that didn't go viral, and looked at some common denominators between the viral talks and the non-viral ones, and on the same subject, of course. Now, one of the biggest standouts, there are a number of standouts, and we'll talk about them in another video, but one of the biggest standouts, if not the biggest standout, was that the TED Talks that went viral, the speakers used their hands and made about twice as many hand gestures as similar topics which didn't go viral. Wow. Just a few hand movements, double the hand movements, and you get a viral TED Talk versus a non-viral TED Talk. Maybe there's something in this, eh? Now, the other thing is that when you quiz or interview audiences who have watched people live or on TV or video or DVD or whatever, people that use lots of hand movements, they judge those people that have high use of hand movements to be more warm, more agreeable, and more energetic than people that don't. And people that don't use their hands to speak, they're regarded as cold, logical, and analytic. So big difference there as well. So if we have agreed by now that we should be using hand movements, where and how many hand movements should you be using? So if we use my body as an example, you've got a box in front of your torso that's about as wide as your shoulders and as wide as your hips, and it goes from your shoulder line, the top of your shoulders, the bottom of your neck, to just below your waist. And if you keep your hands inside that box, that's the optimal place to have hand movements. Now, people that move their hands outside of that box, like I do a lot of times, can be seen occasionally as being a little bit out of control. So it's occasionally okay to do larger hand movements, but try and keep them within that box as much as possible. Now, hand movements add colour and depth and variety to your story, and also adds emotionality to the story. It's been shown also that hand movements are almost a second language that and adds in missing parts to the verbal communication that may not have come through verbally. So it gives the listener a lot more nuances and depth into that conversation or into what you're saying. So it adds a lot of extra information and dimension to what you're saying. So it's really, really, really important. And as I said earlier, it also adds emotion into the story, and then it also acts as a punctator or punctuator. Now let me give you an example of some of this. So if I were to say, I want to tell you a really big, important point, how would that look versus we're going to share a really big, important point? And does that add an extra dimension to the bigness of that point versus this? Yeah, I think so. And also if you're listing things out, like if you're lecturing or if you're talking to a group or if you're a salesperson selling stuff, if you say, we're going to talk about 3 things here today. Number 1 is this. Number 2 is this. Number 3 is this. You've effectively bolded or underlined or brightened up those 3 important points by using your hands as punctuators or as a punctuator. Now the last thing that I want to share is that people who don't use hand gestures at all or virtually at all are regarded as less trustworthy than people that do. And then while we're talking about trust, there's obviously also the matter of lie detection. When what you say and your hand gestures match up to what you'll say, then you're going to be perceived as telling the truth. However, one of the biggest keys to lie detection is to find mismatches between what the other person is saying and their hand gestures. So when your hand gestures and what you're saying coincide and build on each other, you'll be regarded as truthful. But where your hand gestures mismatch what you're saying, or you have no hand gestures at all, it's more reason for the other person to regard you as being less than honest. So I hope this has given you some really simple, immediately actionable strategies that you can use. So see you in the next video. Bye-bye.